Well, hello again, guys, for one final time this season from here at the G-Tech Community Stadium. And would you believe I've got sloppy on the last day? I've forgotten my selfie stick. So here I am with a static production. Many of you might be pleased by that, who suffer dizziness when I'm wandering up and down stadiums. But I'll tell you who weren't sloppy today, at least going forward, and that was Newcastle United. I thought that day there was everything that I've been crying out for in the last two games. Clinical, ruthless, and that was because Alexander Isak, he was fully fit and firing. If he'd have been like that in the last two, I honestly think Newcastle would have got the wins they needed to still, well, they would have had sixth place and perhaps would have still been in with a shout at fifth place going into the last day of the season. Joe Linton coming back into the team. That freed Bruno Guimaraes to be the player we know he can be. He was fantastic today, Bruno. Isak too, it really was. I've just had a conversation with my colleagues there. Which of the two do you give the 3 stars to? My colleagues talk about the 3 stars as well. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Yes, there were still those frailties at the other end. They need to be addressed. You know, it shouldn't have been as nervy as it was for a period there in the second half when Brentford scored 2 goals. But for Newcastle to have less shots than they did at Manchester United and less than they did at home to Brighton the previous weekend, yet to score 4 goals, that just shows the difference it makes when you have those players at their very best. And for me, I just thought, Alexander Isak today, that is the difference for me. When you've got Isak like that, the player we know he is, and just how much is that illness, that diminished version we saw of Isak down at Manchester United on Wednesday night, when he goes through in that one-on-one and Amrabat recovers, what does Isak normally do in that scenario? He pauses, he sits the defender down like he did to Jareth Branthwaite, like he did to Van der Ven, like he's done to countless other defenders, and he scores a goal. He doesn't on Wednesday because there was something clearly amiss. That there today was so much better. That was him at his very best. And again, you know, we talk about Isak, but I class Isak almost today as a returning player, because that was Isak returning to what he can be and what he should be. But 2 more returning players. There were some big selection calls from Eddie Howe there. 4 changes, and the 2 key ones for me were Nick Pope coming back in goal. I've made my feelings known on Martin Dubravka in recent weeks in terms of how I actually think now he is regressed to the point as a goalkeeper where I don't think he no longer is a top flight keeper. That cost them down at Old Trafford on Wednesday night. Pope comes back in here today, and so does Joe Linton. In the last video I did, and everything we've spoken about Newcastle and, you know, where have the nasty boys gone? Where is that physicality? Where is those street smarts gone? You notice there in the first half when Newcastle needed to buy just a little bit of time, who went down with an injury? Was he injured? Was he not? Was it a tactical ploy to break play? It was Joe Linton. He was warned by the referee. And, you know, I thought, good on you. That is actually what they've needed. That is what we've been crying out for Newcastle for a little while now, especially away from home. But it wasn't just that side of things. It was just Joe Linton's, you know, the physicality, the energy, the presence to put a midfield in a midfield. You know, I thought on Wednesday night Newcastle's midfield was bypassed, and that's happened so many occasions away from home. Joe Linton was coming back after 4 months out here today, and I just thought he was fantastic, and a reminder of, for everything in this season, one of the key, most important elements of it might actually be the fact that Joe Linton has signed a new deal. He will be here next year. On that, will his big pal Bruno Guimaraes be here now? I know it unnerved some when he was waving what seemed like a prolonged wave goodbye to the away fans over my shoulder there on full time. It was the question I asked of Eddie Howe afterwards. You know, was it a wave goodbye? Eddie Howe said he doesn't think so. Bruno does do that sort of thing. He then said he certainly hopes it's not, which, you know, that sort of language may worry one or two. He said, I am desperate to keep him at the club because he is integral to what we do. And he was integral there today. You know, I've been critical at times, you know, I'll commit to critical, that when Bruno Guimaraes, you know, £100 million release clause linked with Paris Saint-Germain, Manchester City, there's been some games, big games, when I think he could have and should have stepped up and done more to influence the result. As you know, someone said to me the other day, you come over Craig, it's waving at us, please sort it out. There's a wind coming in there. Yeah, I'll try my best. But I thought today, Bruno stepped up when his team needed him. You know, the assist for Harvey Barnes. Newcastle didn't start the game brilliantly. This was almost the opposite. It was the flip to what we've seen down at Crystal Palace when they started well. You know, the joke was they played well for 2 minutes and then, you know, were awful for 88. I thought they started nervily here today and actually got away with one. inside 90 seconds when Ivan Toney scored the goal. It's offside. And Brentford were noticeably focusing all their attacks down Newcastle's left. Lewis Hall, I thought, had a good game going forward, but that suspicion remains at the other end. So anyway, Newcastle don't start well at all. And we're sat there in the press box thinking, wow, the first 2 or 3 minutes, there's only one team. Looks as if they're fighting for Europe, and it's not Newcastle. But then Bruno Guimaraes produces that assist for Harvey Barnes on, I think it was 15 minutes or so, to get the opening goal. And that just settles everything. Barnes, who, he's a numbers player. He scores goals. He gets assists. There's other areas of his game you look at, and you do wonder at times. But certainly in terms of that end product, he's there. He comes in. He gets the header. That's 1-0. And from then on, it's a little bit of a stroll beneath the West London sunshine here for Newcastle in the first half. It's easy. Brentford revert to the team who we thought they would have been today, which is one who were on the beach, nothing really to play for. Newcastle from that point on, they're incisive, they're ruthless, they're clinical, they're everything they weren't at Manchester United and against Brighton 8 days ago. Now, the second goal is all about Alexander Isak winning the ball from Ethan Pinnock, and that ball across the box. This became a real recurring theme. The sublime assists, whips the ball through the area, and Jacob Murphy, who I thought had a very good game today, he scores at the far post. That is 2-0. They then get the third. Murphy wins it into Bruno. Bruno, that class, that first time pass to finish Isak. And the Alexander Isak we saw earlier in the week, maybe he doesn't take that first time. Maybe there is that slight doubt, that slight hesitation. But what we saw there for the third goal, that was classic Isak. No hesitation. Just a killer, cold blood, just ice in his veins. He puts that in the bottom corner, and that is 3-0, game over. But it's not game over, because Newcastle come out in the second half and revert to the Newcastle defensively who we've seen away from home far too much this season. I'm moving, without the selfie stick, I'm moving my hands a lot more. I've just noticed that. A little bit off-putting for me. I hope it isn't for you guys. So no, Newcastle come out second half. Don't start the second half at all, actually. Brentford get one back, ball across the middle. Yanel puts it in. And then you can feel a second goal might just be coming. There's a huge save from Nick Pope, from Ivan Toney at 3-1. Gareth Southgate was sat there just behind us. I think he might have made note of that. And, Nick Pope's season might not end here. On the evidence of that, how good he was, England are crying out for a third choice goalkeeper. I think Gareth Southgate might just have seen him there today. And on Brentford's second goal, I think it's a brilliant finish from Wissa. Dan Burn can perhaps do more. Again, we saw it with Hoyland on Wednesday night. Is he a little bit too passive in sort of stopping that run, stopping that shot? Nonetheless, it's an excellent finish from Wissa, whipped into the bottom corner via the inside the post. I think Pope is perhaps a little bit unlucky with that one. Maybe if he's fully 100%, he does get fingertips to it. But it's 3-2, and you've written your match report, and you think, goodness, this is on the last day of the season. Come on, guys, we've had a season of ups and downs and late goals and controversy. Just give us an easy one on the last day of the season as reporters. I had it written at half time. That was it done. It's then nervy, and Newcastle go up the other end. Lewis Hall again, very good going forward. He bursts into the box. He wins what we think is a penalty. It's not. Actually, I think it's when I've seen the replay, I know Newcastle weren't very happy, and Jason Tyndall was booked on the back of that. Eddie Howe has just clarified to us there. It wasn't him who was booked. It was Jason Tyndall. He enjoyed that. And it's downgraded to a free kick, which I think is the right decision. I haven't seen the replay back. Isak hits the free kick. Mark Fleckin parries it, and Bruno follows up the score 4-2. We all breathe a little easier. You guys in the away end are singing about Europe again, and we can commit to our intros. And the intro was, and this is what talks to what you guys said there, the most important game of Newcastle's season is next weekend at Wembley, and they're not even playing in it. They will be flying at 35,000 feet back from the tour of Australia. Manchester, you will know the permutations, but we'll go over them for anyone who doesn't. Manchester United win. Newcastle are knocked out of the Conference League. No European football. A victory for Manchester City, and Manchester City will win. I don't think Manchester United are very good, and that means Newcastle are in the Conference League. Now, going back to the very first day of the season, when Newcastle were a Champions League club and they were top of the Premier League after smashing Aston Villa, did we think we'd get to this point on the final day and be happy, pleased with Conference League football? Well, no, but honestly, I think it represents success, given all of the turbulence of the injuries, Sandro Tonali's suspension, the injuries, the cup draws, the injuries, the VAR controversy, the injuries, and how apt was it to bookend the season with the first injury to Anthony Gordon in 51 matches. On that, he should be fine. He's had a scan on his injured ankle. He's not going to Australia. Probably good news for Gordon, good news for England, but we expect him to be okay for that England squad on Tuesday. But no, I honestly think, Eddie Howe deserves great success for navigating the season. I think it will end in Europe, given all of the trials, all of the tribulations. My thoughts on him. I think he's top class. I think he's elite. I think he's brilliant. And I think he deserves, and his coaching staff and the players too, by extension. There've been some poor performances. I've stood here and spoken about them. I think they're real areas to work on. Not long enough this video to go over all of them. I think we've got to address key areas in the summer in terms of certain weaknesses in the squad. But I think nonetheless it will represent a campaign of success, and one they can learn from, one they should learn from. And I do think they'll be in Europe next year. And that's important, because you can't just have even though it's the Conference League, you can't just have a season out of Europe if you want to develop that robustness to midweek weekend football, midweek weekend. And Eddie Howe's just said that to us downstairs. That's what he alluded to. You need to get used to that and to maintain that momentum. And don't underestimate, I use that phrase, even though it's the Conference League. I'm delighted for my passport purposes that Newcastle are there. Don't underestimate the pull that has in attracting players, just that word European football, and keeping the likes of Bruno and Isak at the club. And that there today, that just underlined why Newcastle need to keep Isak and Bruno. I thought they were the best two players by a distance. Merit Stars leads us into, for the final time this season, for the 3 stars in ascending order, I'm going to give it to 3 players, unprecedented last day, who cares, and that is Joe Linton, Nick Pope and Jacob Murphy. Joe Linton and Pope, because their return, I just thought made a big difference. If they'd have been fit sooner and for longer, for me, Newcastle probably would have been playing Champions League football. I think those 2 players are so impactful on the team. Pope for defending that area between his goal and the back 4, and the saves he made. He made one from Tony with his feet in the first half there, that we haven't mentioned. Joe Linton, all the reasons I've discussed. 1 star each for them. And Jacob Murphy, because he scores the goal, he scores the second goal, and to win the ball like he did for the Isak goal as well, just credit to him. I didn't want this to pass without Murphy, a player who you look at and you think, because of base level of ability, is he good enough for where Newcastle want to go? He's certainly good enough to be a squad player. I think he's had a very good season, and said a lot who perhaps doubt him. So Murphy, that trio end with 1 star. The 2 stars, this is the big call. The 2 goes to Bruno, who tells you the 3 go to. Yeah, I just thought, spoken about it already. He stepped up today. He looked like the quality player edging towards that £100 million that we know he can be. His team neither, and that was a show of class. That was a show of pedigree. But the 3 goes to Isak. I just think, I use that word, I think the difference today between not winning against Brighton, not winning against Manchester United, is Isak in the final third and what he does. And for that is the reason he's the one who, and if you are watching on this flight to Australia, Alexander, well done. You finished with the 3 stars. But my player of the season would still go to a player who wasn't here today, and that is Anthony Gordon. So anyway, guys, there's still so much to come this summer in terms of transfers, bits of news. I'm now after the Europa League final on Wednesday, Champions League final the week after. I'll then be out with the Euros with England. So much more to come from all of that. And from a Newcastle perspective, really, really newsy summer. I'll probably be back next week or the week after with some sort of update. There's a few post-season bits to come as well. So thank you so much for watching through all of this campaign. I'd normally spin around at this point with a selfie stick, but because I've got sloppy on the final day, I'm going to do it manually. So there you go, guys. Good place to watch football, this. A nice part of the world too. So me and my colleagues are off for a beer down by the river. I hope you found a suitable watering hole too. Please hit like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you again very shortly. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.